is a 2021 Cadillac Escalade, and today I'll show you the interior and exterior and then take you for a drive. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Before we get started for the video today, I'd like to thank everyone who has subscribed for subscribing. The channel has reached almost 4,000 subscribers, which is a huge number, and I'm so excited that so many people are interested in these videos, and it makes each one that I make all the more fun. So thank you all so much for all of your support. Second of all, I do have a few announcements to make. First of all, it is very cold outside, so I'm freezing. But second of all, and more importantly, I now have a wireless microphone to use for the channel. So hopefully this will solve some of the poor quality issues I've had in some of my previous videos, and I think this will make it a little bit more enjoyable for you guys to watch these videos. But I will probably have a few kinks here and there, so bear with me as I try and figure out this new audio system. So, as you can see, today we have a Cadillac Escalade to review. And this is a very special vehicle. The Cadillac Escalade has the highest curb appeal of any new Cadillac on sale today, which is very interesting. I think that makes this car worth looking into and seeing why it is so successful and what exactly it signifies. So, let's start with the video. But before we take a look at this specific Escalade, I'd actually like to explain some of the history behind the Escalade nameplate. First of all, the Escalade name actually refers to a warfare tactic where troops would use ladders and towers to climb walls. If you've ever seen the Lord of the Rings movies where the orcs attack Minas Tirith and Helm's Deep with their towers and their ladders, that's exactly what the Escalade name refers to, which I think is actually really cool because I never knew that the Escalade name really meant something. I just assumed some Cadillac person came up with it and it sounded good, so they stuck it on their truck. But the Escalade itself was actually first released in 1999, and it was introduced to compete against the new and popular Lincoln Navigator for the time. However, what's interesting is that the Escalade really wasn't that luxurious of a truck back then. It was basically a rebadging of a GMC Denali. It really wasn't that luxurious. It was basically just like a normal truck with an Escalade name and a Cadillac badge on the front. But although the Escalade wasn't that luxurious of a truck to start off with, it actually became very popular among rappers, movie stars, and athletes, and that actually drove the desirability of the Escalade through the roof. And even today, the Escalade continues to outsell all of its rivals in the luxury SUV space, which is very impressive. The status symbol of the Escalade has not yet worn off, but it would be interesting to see how Cadillac continues that tradition with the new 5th generation of the Escalade. So now let's take a look at this specific Escalade and see what exactly makes it special. So of course, when buying a new Escalade today, there are multiple trim levels to choose from. First of which being the luxury trim, which starts at a base price of $78,000. You can upgrade to the premium luxury or sport trims, which go up to the upper $80,000 levels. Or if you want to go all out and get the platinum package, that will cost you $103,000. And you can also get the extended wheelbase version of the Escalade ESV, which costs a few $1,000s more at each trim level. But this Escalade here is the sport trim version, and it's also the regular length version of the Escalade. But what exactly does the sport trim get you? Well, first of all, it gives you this nice mesh grille. It's all blacked out, as you can see, but it also blacks out these trim pieces on the front of the car, as well as trim pieces on the sides that would normally be chrome. But the sport trim is not just an appearance package. It also gives you an electronic limited slip differential, as well as magnetic ride control, so you can tune in your suspension exactly how you want. But this Escalade also came with the $2,500 Onyx package, and that package gives you this nice monochromatic Cadillac badge on the front and back of the Escalade, but it also gives you these nice black 22-inch wheels, which looks very nice and it fits the black nature of this truck, and it gives you these really cool Cadillac puddle lights, which shine on the ground at nighttime to show you the way to your Escalade. And as far as the badge on the front goes, I don't mind the monochromatic look. It definitely fits the nature of this vehicle, but I still do prefer the regular Cadillac badge with all the colors in it. There are several things I'd like to mention about the front end of the Escalade, first of which being the headlights. I really like the headlights on this specific vehicle. First of all, the daytime running lights down here looks very nice, very long, very distinctive of Cadillac, but taking a closer look, you can see that the glass is etched in there. Looks very beautiful, but even more beautiful are the actual headlights up here. You have to kind of take a closer look to see it, but there's actually a lot of different details in there, a lot of different edges, swooping lines, a lot more etching on the glass. But the coolest part about these headlights is that when you start the Escalade, they actually tilt backwards and back forwards to give a little bit of a light show. I actually didn't know that these headlights moved at first when these Escalades came out, but it's cool to see that they do that. And one other thing to mention about the Cadillac badge up front is that this thing is huge. I mean, this has got to be about 8 inches wide or so, if not bigger, and I don't think I've ever seen any Cadillac badge that large before, not even on Cadillacs from the 70s. This thing is gigantic, and it's funny to see such a big badge that's even wider than my face. And I think the overall look of the front end of this Escalade is very bold and imposing, which is what Escalades should be. However, it doesn't look quite as beautiful as I'd come to expect the front end of Escalades. The last generation of Escalade looked both beautiful but also bold, and this one still carries a little bit of a luxury look, but it's not quite to the same levels as the previous generation. Now moving along to the side of the Cadillac Escalade, this is where we can see just how large of a vehicle this is in every way. And as a matter of fact, the 5th generation Escalade is bigger in every dimensional way than the outgoing generation. It is about ½ an inch wider, 2 inches taller, and 8 inches longer than the previous Escalade. This Escalade is about 212 inches long, and that's not the longest vehicle I've had in this channel, but this is still very large. But the longer wheelbase version of this Escalade, the Escalade ESV, is about 227 inches long, which is much longer than the outgoing version. Next, there are a few other things I'd like to point out at the side of the Escalade. First of which being the door handles here. They do have an LED strip of light in them to guide your way at nighttime to the handles. Cadillacs have done that for quite some time now, and I like that they are continuing to do so. However, when you do go to open the door, it's not like a normal door handle. It doesn't actually move. It has a touch-sensitive pad back there, so the door electronically opens. But what's really neat is when you go to close the door, it has soft close. The first time on a Cadillac, I've never seen soft closed doors, but now the Escalade has it, and I'm so glad that it has that feature because that's such a luxurious thing. You don't have to slam your doors, or if you don't close it hard enough, it'll automatically close up for you. But the last thing I'd like to mention about the door handle is that down here on the end of it, there's a little Cadillac badge there. That button is what you use to lock or unlock the doors. Pretty neat, really cool attention to detail that it's a Cadillac badge to do that. Now moving towards the rear of the Escalade, I do want to point out that there is a chrome Cadillac badge on the side of the Escalade here. Really nice to see that this isn't blacked out, because if there wasn't any chrome on this truck, it would just look like a black blob and nothing would stand out. I wouldn't like the look of it. I do like the look of it a lot more with that badge there. And I'm also really happy that the Cadillac badges on the wheels are also in chrome. So you do have a little bit of brightness in this Escalade, which is nice to see. And one of the big changes for the Escalade is that it now has independent rear suspension, which is very helpful to improve the ride of the truck as well as the interior space. They can lower the third row floor a little bit to make it more comfortable for people back there. But another big addition for the new Escalade is that it now has air suspension. And air suspension is really nice because it allows for the truck to move up or down several inches. It has about 4 inches of travel. It can go 2 inches higher for extra ground clearance, or it can even go 2 inches lower to make it easier to enter or exit the vehicle. And one of the 3 modes to choose from for the air suspension is entry or exit mode. And that allows for the Escalade to lower every time it's put into park to make it easier to get out and back in. And then when you start the truck and start moving, it'll go back up 2 inches to its normal ride height. Now moving to the back of the Cadillac Escalade, one of my favorite things is here, and that is the Escalade taillights. These things are absolutely massive. They've got to be at least 3 feet long, and because they're so long, that makes it very recognizable, especially at nighttime. Even when you're miles away, you're going to see that this is an Escalade, and I think that's something that a lot of Escalade owners have come to love about the previous generation Escalade, so Cadillac had to include it on this 5th generation as well. However, they did improve these lights, I believe. Similar to the headlights, it has really beautifully etched glass, a lot of different panes of glass in there as well. And another thing that I like about the back end of the Escalade is that the rear windshield wiper has been tucked away up into the rear spoiler of the Escalade. That helps to make the back end look a little bit cleaner. And on the lower left corner of the tailgate, we do have the Escalade nameplate here, which is kind of funny they even did that because you're probably going to be able to tell that this is an Escalade from the back, even if there wasn't an Escalade badge there. And on the other end of the tailgate is something pretty interesting. That is the number 600 as well as the letter D. And that stands for the Newton meters of torque that this engine produces. But then the letter D is what's really special about this Escalade. This came with a diesel engine. For the first time ever in an Escalade, it can now be ordered with a diesel engine option, which is very special. We'll get to it in a minute, but that's exactly what that D stands for. And then on the bumper down here, we do have a cover for the trailer hitch, as well as dual exhaust, which is nice to see, fits the sporty nature of this particular Escalade. And as far as getting into the back of the Escalade goes, there are several ways to do so. First of all, you can actually lift the glass hatch back here with the key fob. Maybe if you just have a smaller item to put back there, or if you don't have enough room to open up the whole tailgate, you can just lift up the glass and get in the inside of the truck from that way. You can also kick underneath the bumper. There's a little sensor there that actually projects Cadillac badge onto the ground. You can try and kick under there if you can, doesn't always work, but if your hands are full, you can use your legs to open and close the tailgate. But my favorite way to get into the back of the Escalade is by pressing the Cadillac badge. Yes, pressing the Cadillac badge is what opens the tailgate of the Escalade. And I think that is such a cool feature that it does that. Very unique and ingenious way to get into the back. And once you're in the back of the Escalade, as you can see, there is plenty of storage space back here. That's one of the reasons why Cadillac added 8 inches of space to the new Escalade, was to give people more space throughout the entire cabin. And it's actually possible to lower the second and third row seating from the back of the Escalade. As you can see, there are buttons on the right side of the storage area, 2 to fold the front 2 seats, and then 2 more buttons to fold the third row of seats. They all are power folding down, but only the third row is power folding back up. So that is a little bit of an issue. You have to go back up to the front of the Escalade to raise the second row of seats again. But the good thing is you'll be actually lowering the third row more often than the second row. However, with all the rows folded up, you have about 25 cubic feet of space. With the third row folded, you have about 63. But with both the second and third row folded down, you'll have over 109 cubic feet of space. However, if that still isn't enough space for you, you can still get the extended version of the Escalade, which will increase all of those capacities. And the last few things to mention back here is that there is a power outlet by the seat controls back here, which is nice to see. You can plug in something if you wanted to. And we do have the Escalade nameplate on this sill here, so you can see it every time you open and close the back hatch of your Escalade. Next, let's take a look underneath the hood of the Escalade and see how that diesel engine looks. So, there are actually 2 engine choices for the new Escalade. The first of which being the 6.2 liter V8 engine, and that produces about 420 horsepower and 460 pound-feet of torque. This is also the same engine that was in the previous generation of Escalade. However, this engine is the other option. You can get a 3-liter Duramax diesel engine producing about 277 horsepower and a very impressive 460 pound-feet of torque, which is the same as the V8 engine. And one of the reasons why I would actually choose the diesel engine over the regular V8 engine is because this engine gets very impressive gas mileage. It gets about 21 miles per gallon in the city, but 27 miles per gallon on the highway. And yes, the city mileage is probably so good because of the stop-start system that the Escalade has, but I'm so impressed that this can get 27 mpgs on the highway. But if you are looking to get more horsepower out of an Escalade, there is rumored to be an Escalade V in the works, which will have a supercharged 6.2 liter V8 engine. All right, let's start up the Escalade and see how the Duramax diesel engine sounds. Before we take a look at the interior of the Cadillac Escalade, I did want to show you guys the key fob to this Escalade. And overall, I do like it. It has a very nice weighty feeling. You kind of do notice that when you first pick up this key fob. Very nice. However, I am a little bit disappointed in it. The previous generation of Cadillac Escalade, as well as older Cadillacs, had a different key fob than this, and it was rubberized. Most of this is just harder plastic. There is metal on it, which is good, but most of it is a hard plastic, and it doesn't feel quite as nice as some of the older Cadillac key fobs, which is a little bit of a disappointment. But anyways, taking a look at it, we do have a really nice Cadillac badge on the back, and as you can see, it is not monochromatic like the rest of the Escalade badges on the car, which is an interesting thing that Cadillac did that. But anyways, flipping over to the other side, we have, of course, our usual lock and unlock buttons. We can press this button twice to auto start the truck, or open up the rear tailgate as well as the rear glass. And finally, there is a panic button there. But something actually that's really cool about this key fob is you can actually go into the settings of the Escalade and make it so when you hold the unlock button for 3 seconds, all 4 windows on the Escalade will open up. But then when you press the lock button for 3 seconds, all of them will then close again. That is actually such a nice feature because, say, if your Escalade has been sitting outside in the sun for a long time and it's really hot in there, you want to actually open up all the windows automatically to get all that hot air out. Really ingenious for Cadillac to do that. And something that I do really like about the Escalade and the key fob is that it does have an automatic keyless entry and exit system. So every single time you walk up to the truck, the doors will of course automatically unlock for you or lock as you walk away. But my favorite thing about that is when you approach the Escalade, the front headlights do a really cool flashing dance for you. They turn on and off several times, and the tail lights also do a special little dance. The lights move from the bottom to the top several times. Very pretty, very beautiful looking. But the most beautiful part of that whole system is the Cadillac badge that glows from the interior of the truck. There's this absolutely gorgeous looking piece of metal and glass on the inside of the truck right behind the rear screen, and it looks really pretty when it's lit up, and one of my favorite things about approaching the Escalade. But anyways, the last thing to mention about the key fob is that there is a button on the side here, and when you press it, you get an actual physical key to get inside of the Escalade if your battery ever dies. But overall, that is the Cadillac key fob. It is pretty nice, but once again, mostly plastic, which is a little disappointing. Now that we've taken a good look at the exterior of the Escalade, let's go ahead and check out the interior. Wow, taking a look at the inside of the Cadillac Escalade, I am very impressed. First of all, there's just a wide variety of leathers, woods, and metal in here. It all contrasts very, very nicely. And also, this is really neat because it's the most unique Cadillac interior out there. The Escalade is the only one that has this sort of a design for Cadillac interiors, especially when looking at that massive screen behind the steering wheel. Generally, the materials are very good, except to get below the armrests in the car. There's usually harder plastics, which is okay. I wasn't expecting it to be all extremely nice leather, but overall, very nice materials in here, and I love the layout of this interior. So taking a look at the door panel, for example, we have really nice contrast stitching at the top. The white really matches well with the black. And also we have really nice dark wood, which looks beautiful. It matches the dark aesthetic of this Cadillac Escalade. And we do have metal trim as well on the door handle, as well as the door itself. In front of the door handle, we have controls for our heated and cooled seats, as well as our power door locks and unlock buttons. And in front of the armrest on the door, we also have our window switches, as well as our window lockout, memory seating, and our mirror controls, which is everything you'd expect to see. But I do really like the plastic around those buttons there isn't just black and boring. It's actually very sparkly when you take a closer look at it. It reflects nicely in the sun, and it just looks a little bit more special. All right, next, let's hop into the Escalade and see how comfortable it is. Ooh. All right, now I am inside of the Cadillac Escalade. Overall, the comfort here is fairly nice. I do feel like I'm nicely supported inside of this seat. The leather's relatively soft. It feels pretty good. But I will say that it seems like more modern cars are getting harder and harder seats. These seats aren't exactly fluffy. You won't really sink into it very much. It's a little bit too hard for my tastes, but Overall, I do really like the looks of this seat. It is very beautiful. It has really beautiful white piping on the sides, as well as really cool looking speakers in the headrest. And I was actually kind of worried that my head would hit those speakers or something when I'm usually sitting in here, but it actually doesn't, so it doesn't bother me that those speakers are there. We do have seat controls down here by my thigh. We do have lumbar support, but no massaging seats on this specific Escalade. And speaking of the speakers in this Cadillac Escalade, this does come with AKG's 19-speaker sound system, which does sound pretty good, but you can upgrade to a 36-speaker sound system, which I'm sure is even nicer than this. All done by AKG. Cadillac seems to be moving away from Bose towards another sound system maker, which is pretty neat. It makes them more unique in the luxury space. Now looking at the steering wheel ahead of me, as you can see, it does look pretty nice. It has some nice soft leather around it, as well as metal on the lower section of the steering wheel, as well as wood. On the left side of the steering wheel is our controls for the cruise control, as well as our heated steering wheel, our gap distance with the car in front of us, as well as some other controls I'll get to in a minute. On the right side of the steering wheel is our infotainment controls, our volume knobs, and then on the back side of the steering wheel are some plastic paddle shifters. Kind of funny to see paddle shifters on an Escalade when it's an Escalade, such a large vehicle. It really shouldn't need something like that. And then directly behind the steering wheel is our camera for Supercruise that can watch your eyes and your face at nighttime or at the daytime to make sure you're paying attention to the road. Then finally, on the left side of the steering column is our controls for our headlights, and then on the right side are our wiper controls. And as you'd expect, this wheel is power telescoping and tilt, which is nice to see on a luxury vehicle. What's also really neat is that this Escalade has conversation enhancement mode, and that's what this button on the steering wheel is for. It actually has a little ear on it, and what that does is it turns on this mode where microphones in the back seat will pick up voices and reverberate it throughout the car to make it easier for you to hear the people in the back. This is a very long vehicle, so it's very nice that this has conversation enhancement mode. But let's now get to the good stuff. Behind the steering wheel is, of course, this gigantic screen, 38 inches wide, absolutely beautiful, and my favorite part of the new Cadillac Escalade interior. I truly wish that every new Cadillac right now had a screen like this. To me, this is how you make a large screen in a car look beautiful. It's actually stylized. It's not just tacked on to the dashboard like most other cars with large screens are. This here is gorgeous. This screen is actually based off of the beautiful 2016 Cadillac Escalade concept screen, which I actually got to see in person. I got to take a lot of photos of that car and of the interior as well. Really beautiful looking, and I'm so glad that Cadillac used that screen as inspiration. So let's take a closer look at this screen, which is actually 3 different screens. There is a 7.2-inch screen on the left, a 14.2-inch screen in the middle, and a 16.9-inch screen on the right. The 7.2-inch screen on the left is actually dedicated for your trip statistics, such as the distance you have gone or your fuel mileage. You can actually swipe through 2 different trip meters, or you can just have a blank screen. You also have controls at the bottom to control your center screen. You can switch through the gauges, a map view, or night vision or augmented reality, and we'll get to those in just a second. You can also adjust your heads-up display with the left. You can adjust the tilt of the heads-up display as well as the brightness. But overall, the left screen is a very convenient place to have all these controls, very easy to reach, very easy to get to, and it's really cool that it's a touch screen. So in the center screen, as you can see, we have regular gauges. Looks pretty nice, very clear, very crisp. We can also cycle to a night vision mode, which is also very crisp and very clear. It can also outline different things at nighttime for you, such as animal or people, which makes it much safer driving at night and very easy to do. We also have a map setting for the middle screen, so you can have your map right in front of you so you can see your directions without having to look over to the right at another screen. You can see it all right in front of you, very safe and very convenient. But one of my favorite things to use with the middle screen is augmented reality. This actually uses a camera to look in front of the car and to show you what is ahead of you. And it does look a little strange when you're first using it, but you get used to seeing what's in front of you on that screen. But the main purpose of it is to be used during the maps. It actually puts arrows above different locations where you want to turn. At intersections or stop signs, it'll have arrows straight ahead of you to make it easier for you to know where you have to turn to get to a certain location. And what's also really cool is when you arrive at that location, it'll put a photo of it on the screen for you to see it and to know if you're at the right place. But there's another way that the augmented reality will help you to find your destination and how to get there. It actually uses the sound system of the car to speak in what direction you're supposed to go in. So if you're making a left turn, the sound will come from the left speaker telling you where to go. Really ingenious technology, pretty incredible. And what is nice is no matter which setting you're using for the middle screen, if you're using night vision or augmented reality, it'll still show you your speed, your RPMs, and everything else you need to know. And you can also cycle through information on the center screen by pressing the vehicle information icon. And another really interesting thing about the center screen is that it has a little photo of the inside of an Escalade on it with a bunch of red X's. That is actually telling you what seats have their seat belts engaged. So if you have a bunch of kids or people in the back, you don't have to ask them or look to see if they have their seatbelts on. All you have to do is look at that little screen to see if they have put on their seatbelts or not. And finally, looking at the 16.9-inch screen on the right, it looks, once again, absolutely beautiful. You have all your apps where you need it to be. You can easily swipe through different pages on the home screen. Very responsive, very crisp and clear. And the nice thing is all the icons on this large screen can be adjusted as you want. You can move them around. Even all your most frequently used apps on the left can be changed. So it's really nice how configurable everything is. And to mention some of the interesting settings and features on this 16.9-inch screen, first you can engage automatic parallel or perpendicular parking. If you're in a parking lot and you're having trouble parking this beast of a vehicle, you can actually turn that on and the Escalade will look for a suitable parking spot and even guide you into it to make it easier for you to park. And another way that Cadillac makes it really easy to park this vehicle is by having a really good camera system. As you can see, there are plenty of camera angles to choose from on the sides of the car, the front, the back. You can also look at an overhead view, which is very nice, and it also shows you trajectory lines where you're going to be going, forwards and backwards as well. And there's also this really cool surround camera, which you can kind of look around the entire vehicle from the outside point of view, which is really interesting that they were able to do that. And speaking of cameras, there's another very special one I'd like to point out. And this is also a camera that was on the CT6 that I showed you guys a few years ago, and that is the rear camera mirror. This is a great safety thing, especially when you have a vehicle of this size with so many obstructions in your way. And you can actually adjust the brightness of this camera, you can adjust the angle and the zoom. It's very easy to do, very easy to use, and also a very good safety feature for such a big vehicle. You can turn it back to a regular mirror, but when you have lots of people in the back and seats and obstructions, it's so handy having this camera mirror to see what's behind you. And you can also have controls for the ambient lighting within the Escalade. This Escalade has beautiful ambient lighting throughout the entire interior, on the front doors, on the dashboard up front, as well as on the floor, even in the second row seating. And of course, you can choose many different colors to pick from, or you can have it cycle through a multicolored mode, which is absolutely beautiful. And quite possibly the coolest looking thing that this screen does is the startup animation. When you first get into the Escalade, it looks like an Escalade is actually going to come straight at you through the middle screen, and then a Cadillac emblem shoots up on the screen. It's a really beautiful startup animation. It looks gorgeous, and it's such a unique experience each time you get into the Cadillac Escalade. Next, I'd like to go through some of the controls on the interior of the Escalade. On the left behind the steering wheel, we have controls to go into 2 high, 4 high for our all-wheel drive system. We can also adjust our ride height with these buttons on the left, and below those buttons are some switches for the trailer brake system, as well as our electronic parking brake and a little lever to adjust the brightness of the lights on the inside of the car. And then to the right behind the steering wheel are our climate controls. It all looks very nice on this really cool screen. We do have physical buttons to adjust everything, but what's really fun is adjusting something like the temperature. You can actually see the numbers moving up and down on the screen. It looks very pretty. And speaking of the climate controls, we can actually adjust the second row climate from the front. When you go into the 16.9-inch screen on the right, you can go to the climate and adjust the temperature as you see fit for the back. You can also lock out the rear temperature gauges, so then people such as children won't be messing with them or toying with them. You can actually adjust it yourself. And I'm also really glad that these climate controls, as well as many other things in this interior, are still controlled by buttons, and it's not all limited to just the screen. Many modern cars are pushing away from buttons, and I think that's a mistake. It makes it more difficult to adjust things when you're driving. And in the middle of the center console here, we have our shifter for our 10-speed automatic transmission. If you pull it back, you can go into drive. push it forward to go into reverse, or press the button on top to go into park. Pretty easy, fairly intuitive to use. And then behind the shifter, we have 3 different buttons. One is for the auto hold feature, auto stop start, and our lane change warning system. I actually really like the auto hold feature that this car has. When you have it engaged, every time you come up to a stop sign or a stoplight, you can actually release the brake and the car will automatically hold you in that position until you press the gas and are ready to go. Then in front of the shifter knob, we have more controls and buttons. The knob on the top is there to adjust the volume of the sound system, and then the knob behind that can actually be used to control the center screen in this car. What's really nice is that this lever can actually be used to go through every single thing that you can do normally when touching the screen. It makes it very easy to get to things on the screen without actually touching it or reaching forward. And as far as the buttons around those knobs go, they're all fairly straightforward. We have a back button, a home button, we have a button to go straight to our maps. It's all very easy to use, easy to reach. And right in front of the hazard button on the center console is a little hole. And you might be wondering what that's for. That's actually to wirelessly charge your phone. Phone kind of slips into there and it will automatically start charging for you. However, I will say that the hole is actually relatively small and it's kind of hard to get your phone in and out of. So if you have a larger phone, it may not actually fit in here. But the nice thing is that it is hidden away so you won't be distracted by it when you're driving. And then on the right side of the center console is our cup holders. And what's nice is there is a little cubby in there to store stuff, as well as some USBs so you can charge your devices in there. And what I really like about this though is that this wooden cover over the cup holders is absolutely massive. It's like over a foot long. I've never seen a cover for cup holders this large before. That's got to be another world record. And I see this theme of largeness in this Escalade. Just about everything is a world record for being huge. So kind of funny to see that there. And within the center console itself, you can flip up the lid, and inside we do have a good amount of space. There are several cubbies to put things, plenty of room. You can, on other trims of Escalades, get a refrigerator in there, which is pretty nice to put your drinks in, but this one does not have that specifically. Also in the center console is an SD card for the navigation, as well as a button that turns on or off the 110 volt outlets within the car. And what's also really nice about this cover, and a really nice attention to detail, is that there's a bit of metal on the back and it says Escalade on the front in a gorgeous way. Very cool, very beautiful. And also, as far as storage in the Escalade goes, there's plenty. Besides the center console, we have some pretty big door pockets, as well as a very large glove compartment on the right side of the car. And on the sides of the center console, there is some storage there too, as well as some places to plug in your devices. There are also some really neat little touches at the front of the Escalade here, one of which being the Cadillac script up here on the dashboard beneath the screen. It looks really cool and very beautiful. It also reminds me of many of the older Cadillacs from the 70s and other eras that I brought to you guys, which always had the Cadillac script up here on the dashboard. So it seems like Cadillac's kind of touching back on their past here a little bit when putting that Cadillac badge there. I also really like how the warning lights are placed underneath the screen in this black plastic. It's kind of invisible at first. You don't even know it's there. And what's really cool is some older Cadillacs, even from the 80s, also hid their warning lights behind plastic wood, which is really cool that Cadillac is kind of going back once again on their heritage to incorporate these little touches on their interiors. And then above me on the overhead console, we have plenty of buttons and switches here, as you'd might expect. There are buttons near the front to adjust the sunroof, such as the sliding window shade, as well as the sliding sunroof itself. Very nice, and that panoramic sunroof is very nice to help brighten up the entirety of this interior. There are also some switches up here that are very handy in that they fold down the third row seats. You can push those buttons to lower the seats and also raise them from up front, which is a very handy feature. Then there's also a dial up here which can be used to adjust the tailgate height. Maybe if you have a small garage or a low garage, you don't want the tailgate to open all the way. There's also a button on the overhead console which allows you to turn on or off the lights when the doors are open. And there are also our garage home link buttons up here to, of course, open or close your garage doors. And we do also have buttons up here to turn on some overhead lights. But a really neat quirk about them is if you hold either of these two buttons, all of the interior lights automatically turn on throughout the entire vehicle. So you can actually use this button to hold it, to turn on the lights, to see everything inside of the car. And if you hold it again, all those lights will then turn off. And I'd also like to touch once again on the materials up front. I am still blown away by how nice everything is. There's leather around the screens up front, on the dashboard, on the doors. The wood looks and feels absolutely beautiful. I also love the wood on the dashboard itself. It's all very dark, but it looks very neat inside of this Escalade, and I love it very much. Some of the plastics could be better, but overall, this is still such a beautiful interior, and it's very, very nice up front specifically. All right, I think we've covered everything up front. Let's move on to the second row and see what's back there. All right, I am now in the back seat of the Escalade, as you can see, and it's fairly nice back here. We still have really nice materials on the door, similar to the front. I do really like the nice looking speaker grill here for the AKG sound system. As far as the comfort goes in this seat, it is fairly comfortable. It's not quite as supportive as the front seats, but it almost seems a little bit softer back here too, which is nice. There are some levers by my left thigh to adjust this seat. We can move it forwards and backwards to give me more or less room, which is nice to see. And then the lever behind that one folds this seat up completely. What's nice is if you press it once, it folds down flat. Press it again, and then it'll fold forward for you. And what is nice is there is also a button on the C-pillar behind this seat to actually do that for you automatically. What's really nice is I do have controls for my climate back here. I have actual physical buttons. Once again, they're metal, they feel very nice, and you can turn on things like your heated seats or just adjust your temperature if you wanted to. And then below the climate controls, we have a little cubby that can be popped out for cup holders, which is nice to have. And then below the cup holders are some more ports for you to power your devices back here. And above me, there isn't anything too special. We do have an air vent up there, as well as a clothes hanger and just a light to turn on and off. But there is actually a special touch that Cadillac added back here, and that is with the sill plate. There is an Escalade badge there that says Escalade, and it also lights up at night, which I'm really surprised the Escalade went to such lengths to do that, because most cars and most SUVs like this don't have nice sill plates for the second row, only the front. So it's nice that Cadillac added that there to make the second row experience a little bit more special. However, we are missing some rear seat entertainment screens. If you have kids, I would recommend getting those screens because it would keep them entertained for hours on end. And something that I do really wish was optional on the Escalade would be to have a large center console back here and maybe some power seat controls. Many of the Escalade's competitors, such as the Lincoln Navigator and the brand new Grand Wagoneer, both have large center consoles in the back, which just makes the experience all the more luxurious. And unfortunately, the Escalade has none of that to offer, which I believe is a necessity, because the Escalade is used as a chauffeur vehicle and people back here want to be pampered. And I believe that power rear seats as well as a center console would really help with that experience. And something else that you could actually get with this Escalade in the second row, besides these captain's chairs, is a bench seat, which is really neat. You can actually still get a bench seat on these Escalades, which is pretty cool. If you want to have maybe sitting another extra person, if you have a large family, it would be handy to get a bench seat rather than these captain's chairs. However, it would make getting in and out of the back a little bit less convenient. All right, now let's take a look at the third row of the Escalade and see what it's like back there. Okay, I somehow made it back to the third row, and I am impressed with the amount of space that is back here. With the new independent rear suspension, they were able to lower the floor, and with this Escalade being longer now, they're able to give more room back here. So I can actually sit here for quite some time and still be comfortable. It may not be quite as nice as the second row, or especially not the first row, but it is definitely acceptable. And although there is plenty of space back here, I am still a little bit disappointed that there isn't more of a luxurious touch back here. Really, it feels a lot like a Suburban or a Tahoe. There really isn't anything nice back here besides a few lights, some air vents, and some USB-C ports. You do get a cup holder and some cubby spaces over here, but it's mostly plastic. There's just a little bit of leather here for my arm to rest on. The seats do feel nice, but there's no center console. It's just a little bit disappointing that there isn't more back here to make it more luxurious. And it's also quite dark back here as well, as you can probably see. The panoramic sunroof is very nice, but it doesn't reach back here for the occupants in the third row. Now that we've taken a good look at the exterior and the interior of the 2021 Escalade, let's go ahead and take it for a spin. Okay, driving the 2021 Cadillac Escalade. And as you may have noticed, I changed my appearance a little bit to fit in with the cool people that drive Escalades, because I think that just about every Escalade driver's got to look cool when driving it. No, I'm just kidding, I'll take that off. But anyways, I am very excited to get to experience this Escalade and to drive it around a bit. And ever since they revealed the 5th generation Escalade, maybe about a year ago or so, I was pretty excited about it just because of the technology that the Escalade has and exactly how it would improve upon the older generation of Escalades. So this is a pretty big deal because, once again, this Escalade is the king of full-size luxury SUVs. It's unmatched in many ways by many of its competitors, and it's been extremely popular. So I've been really doing a lot of messing around with this huge screen in the Escalade, and it's actually a lot of fun. But I will say, it is possible to actually get distracted by the different modes that you can put the middle screen into. Like the augmented reality camera, I've been just looking at that all the time because it's kind of mesmerizing, but it's also maybe a little bit dangerous. But the good thing is, since the screen is horizontally placed on the dashboard instead of vertically like other modern cars, it's actually not as distracting as it could be. My eyes aren't off the road as much as it otherwise could be in other cars. And this Escalade really has so many unique systems that no other vehicle on the road has today. So it's neat to see that the Escalade is actually quite the innovator in today's luxury car market. And as far as the ride of the 2021 Escalade goes, it's not bad. I can tell that they really try to make this feel like a connected vehicle and not extremely floaty or boaty. And that's not really too much of a surprise, but although that does help to make the car feel more confident and more poised, it really doesn't seem to fit the nature of the Escalade to me. To me, it's not supposed to be an extremely sporty vehicle. I mean, it can have a sporty sense to it, but I don't think that's exactly what the Escalade ever really was meant to be. But the good thing is, though, that most people will feel relatively safe and confident driving this vehicle. Because the steering isn't extremely loose, because the ride isn't extremely soft, you're going to feel like you're in control of the Escalade, which is a good thing, and is a good thing for most people buying this vehicle. And it is nice that you are very high up off the ground. That also helps to make you feel a little bit more confident behind the wheel. And it's overall an easier vehicle to drive than I first imagined it would be. And something that I actually do wish that this Escalade had was four-wheel steering. This is a long vehicle, and it's even longer than the previous generation of Escalades, so the turning radius really isn't that great. It can make parking this truck pretty difficult, which is my only real complaint. And I think four-wheel steering would have been a really interesting thing that GM could have put onto this Escalade, and that probably would make driving it overall a much better experience. But otherwise, that's really the only complaint that I have about this size of this vehicle. And actually, one of the most surprising things about this Escalade is the diesel powertrain. I'm really, really impressed by it. Overall, it actually doesn't feel like I'm driving a diesel vehicle. It actually behaves really quite normally. The power is good. I just don't even think about it being a diesel, and I think that's a really good thing that they made this diesel engine that way, because that means more people would be comfortable with it. They'd be able to live with a diesel engine. You just get such better gas mileage, and it feels like a normal vehicle. And the overall feel that I get with the Escalade is that it is very tech and somewhat sport focused, and that's kind of where the Cadillac brand has been trying to go for a while now. They want to be a forward-leading, forward-thinking brand, and the way to do that is by having the newest technology. And they are doing that well, which is a good thing, but I feel like the luxury side could be even a little bit better. And I'm kind of a little bit disappointed that this Escalade just doesn't have a softer ride or a little bit softer seats. It's trying to be a sports car where it should try to be a luxury barge, because that's exactly what it is. There's no getting around that this Escalade is a huge vehicle. All right, guys, I'm going to really quick put it into sport mode. And let's do a quick 0 to 60 and see what the diesel can do. Wow. It's very torquey, that's for sure. It's 45, 50, 60 right there. It took a little while to actually get going. It really wasn't ready for that. I put the pedal down and it took a second to really rev up and then start moving forward. But it really wasn't actually that bad for a 5,500 pound vehicle. This is a very large car, so I don't expect it to be like Corvette fast or something like that. But overall, not bad. The diesel did well. I'm guessing that the 6.2 liter is a little bit quicker, but this doesn't need to be any quicker than that. I mean, 8 seconds or so to 0 to 60 is not a bad time at all. And another thing about this Escalade is that it is really, really expensive. I mean, I always see tons of platinum Escalades around, and I don't know if you guys do too, but they're a very popular vehicle, and now those are stickering for a base price of $103,000. I mean, you could buy a decent house for that kind of money. I mean, it's amazing how much these are costing people, but the good thing is people are still buying them up. So in a way, Cadillac is still being successful, and I believe that with this new Escalade, Cadillac will continue to be successful. People like to have the newest technology and the coolest and baddest looking vehicles, and this Escalade certainly delivers on that front. And some of the things that I think I like most about the Escalade is its size, its boldness, and just its imposing nature. That's very unique to the Cadillac Escalade, and I think that's why it's so successful among some of the people. I mean, there's really no other car on the market that's quite like the Cadillac Escalade, certainly at least not outside of American brands. And I think that is really cool, that this is like what America does best. They do really big vehicles best today, trucks, SUVs like this. I mean, it's pretty cool. And that's one of the reasons why I do like the Escalade so much, because it really is the best at being just a big in-your-face luxury SUV, which I think is really cool. Okay, in just a minute we're going to be testing out Supercruise, and man, I am really, really excited. Ever since I drove the CT6 I brought to the channel a few years ago, I have really wanted to try out Supercruise again because of how good it was. I'm really excited to see how the lane changing abilities work, because that's one of the new changes with Supercruise with the Escalade, is that when you turn on your turn signal, it'll automatically change lanes for you and go to that lane, which is pretty advanced technology. So we'll see how well it works here in just a sec. All right, we're making our way onto the highway now. So to explain real quick how Supercruise works, we have right now an icon on the screen ahead of me that looks like a little gray steering wheel, as well as a little gray steering wheel on the heads-up display. And that tells me that Supercruise is active and ready to go. And the way to engage it is by pressing this little button on the steering wheel, which looks like a little steering wheel. And once I press it, there we go. It also sets the adaptive cruise control, so then it'll automatically use the brakes or the accelerator as needed to maintain speeds with the car ahead of you. And as you can see, I can take my hands off the wheel. I have this camera in front of me on the steering wheel column, so it looks at my face and my eyes to make sure I'm constantly paying attention to the road, which I will continue to do. And if I was to close my eyes or to maybe fall asleep or have something bad happen to me, it would notice that, and it would eventually turn off Supercruise and bring the car to a halt and call OnStar. And the good thing is that Supercruise in Cadillac makes it really easy to tell what the car is doing. There's a really bright strip of light up on the top of the steering wheel. When it's green, that means that Supercruise is engaged. When it's blue, that means it's active, or red means that it's turning off. So that means if it goes red, your seats vibrate and it'll tell you that the Supercruise is disengaging, so then you will know to take a hold of the wheels. So it shouldn't give you any major surprises when the system does deactivate. Oh, this is just, again, this is just such a weird feeling. I cannot get over the fact that you can drive down the road, not touch anything, and the car is doing everything for you. And so far it's doing a pretty good job of staying in its lane, no issues so far. When doing a lane change, you just tap on the turn signal knob and it'll automatically turn on the turn signals for you, and it'll go over when it's safe to, and once it's over in the other lane, the turn signal will turn off and it'll go back to driving in Supercruise like normally. So just for fun, I'm gonna tap the turn signal, it automatically comes on, and there we go, we're changing lanes. Oh, that's scary. Oh, it did it. Okay. Auto lane change complete. That was really weird. That is scary. That takes some getting used to. I remember when I first drove Supercruise, I was a bit scared just letting go of the wheel, and now I'm more confident to let go of the wheel, but I'm a little bit too scared to let it do an automatic lane change. That is just insane. And the weird thing is, taking your hands off the steering wheel truly does make this experience so much better, so much more relaxing. I'm so glad I don't have to touch the wheel every once in a while to get it to work. It's just, you can sit back and pretend you're a passenger just looking out the front of the car. And what's really cool is that General Motors is developing something called Ultra Cruise, which I'm pretty sure is actually going to be a step up from Supercruise, and they're going to actually be releasing more details on Ultra Cruise during the CES show, Consumer Electronics Show, this January. So we're going to find out some stuff pretty soon about it. And I'm really excited to see what Cadillac cooks up for us, because I'm pretty sure it's going to be good. But overall, I love Supercruise. It's seriously my favorite feature of any new car, and it makes driving so much more relaxing and so easy. But once again, this Escalade is still extremely impressive. I love the design on the interior. The exterior still does look nice, and I think this Escalade will still have a very strong curb appeal. People will want it, people will desire it, and right now the Escalade is Cadillac's halo vehicle. It's got a lot riding on its shoulders. The Cadillac brand is truly riding on the success of this vehicle. All right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I had a good time with the Escalade, and it was a really fun car to have, and it's just such an interesting vehicle and very successful. I hope that you guys got to at least learn something new about this truck. And if you guys have any other thoughts or comments about the Escalade, be sure to leave them down in the video below, and I'll be sure to respond to you guys as soon as I can. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for watching my video. Be sure to comment, like, and subscribe, and to come back again soon for more videos. Thank you. Ugh, there's a Lincoln behind us. Ugh. Ugh. I shouldn't even be in the presence of one of those Lincolns, not in my Cadillac Escalade. I'm just goofing around. I am being an idiot. Oh, that's Dad! Hi, Dad! Wow, that's so cool! Wow! What are the odds of that? We just met up right there. That's neat. Wow. Huh.